You know, there's a high-stakes financial showdown brewing in California, and it's a big one. Some of the state's absolute wealthiest residents are, well, they're heading for the exits. And it all comes down to one really controversial proposal and a multi-billion-dollar question.
And that really is the question, isn't it? Why are some of the richest people on the entire planet suddenly packing their bags and leaving the Golden State? Well, the answer, it involves a number with a whole lot of zeros attached to it.
And look, this is not just some rumor mill stuff. We are talking about absolute titans of industry. Google co-founder Larry Page, Peter Thiel from PayPal, venture capitalist David Sachs, they've already cut ties with California. And tax advisors are saying at least 3 other billionaires have quietly joined them. This could just be the very first wave.
So what is causing all this commotion? What's the catalyst? It all comes down to a proposed tax. But believe me, this isn't just any tax. This thing is aimed like a laser at the ultra-rich, and it is sending absolute shockwaves through Silicon Valley and way beyond.
Okay, so it's really important we get this straight, because this isn't your typical income tax. A wealth tax is different. It's about what you own, your total net worth, your stocks, your real estate, art, literally everything. It's a completely different way of looking at taxes for the very top.
All right, here it is, the number that's at the center of this whole debate, 5%. The proposal is for a one-time 5% tax on any personal fortune that goes over $1 billion. To give you some perspective, if you're worth, say, $10 billion, that's a one-time tax bill of $500 million. Just wow.
And here's what really lit a fire under everyone: the timing. A hard deadline was set. To even have a chance of avoiding this tax, you had to officially end your California residency by January 1st, 2026. This created this massive sense of urgency, forcing people to make a huge decision before the proposal even became law.
So you might be wondering, why would they even propose something so controversial? Well, for the people who support this, it's not about trying to punish success. For them, it's about dealing with a massive and growing crisis in public funding.
Get a load of this number. California is looking at a projected $190 billion shortfall for its Medi-Cal program over the next 10 years. That's a staggering gap, and it's not just a number on a page. It affects healthcare for millions of actual people. Proponents see this tax as the direct solution.
So, where would all this new tax money go? The plan, which is championed by the Service Employees International Union, is really specific. The funds would be earmarked to go straight to the basics, essential services like healthcare, education programs, and food assistance.
And this really gets to the heart of their argument, right? They're saying, look, we're talking about a tiny, tiny fraction of the population, maybe around 200 billionaires. Their point is that for these folks, a 5% tax is a drop in the bucket. But for the state, that money is an absolute lifeline. But, as always, there are 2 sides to every story. And the other side is warning that this whole plan, no matter how good the intentions are, could backfire big time. They call it chasing away the golden goose, the very people who help keep the state's finances afloat.
And you really have to see the numbers to get their point. It's kind of wild. In California, just the top 1% of earners, they already pay almost half, 48%, of the state's entire income tax revenue. That is a huge concentration of financial weight on a very small group of people. This quote from William Stern, he's the founder of Cardiff, he just nails the fear perfectly. He asks, if you chase the golden goose out of the state with a wealth tax, who pays for the lights? This isn't a political debate, it's a math problem. I mean, that's the big question, right? If they fly away, who's left to pay the bills?
And that leads to what critics are calling a potential domino effect. Because, look, the state still needs money, right? The government has to get it from somewhere. So if the biggest taxpayers are gone, where does it turn? Well, they argue the tax burden is inevitably going to shift and fall right on the shoulders of the middle class.
So let's just boil this all down for a second. The argument for is, tax these massive fortunes to solve a real crisis and fund essential services. The argument against is, you're going to scare away your biggest taxpayers, their wealth is mobile, so they'll just leave, and the problem will get even worse for everybody else. But just when you think you've got it all figured out, the story gets a little more complicated. Because, not everyone is packing their bags. The narrative of a total exodus, it's not the whole picture. Some very big names are digging in and staying put. I mean, check this out. You've got Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA. He's come out publicly and said he has no plans to leave Silicon Valley. And he even said he's, quote, perfectly fine paying the tax if it becomes law. Now, for supporters of the tax, that's a pretty powerful statement. And really, the whole situation is still up in the air. It's a very mixed bag. You have a real estate developer like John Sobrato who says he's staying, but he's betting the tax will fail anyway. Then there are others on the fence, like Google co-founder Sergey Brin and investor Chamath Palihapitiya, who are openly looking at other states. It's definitely not a simple stay or go decision.
So, with all this back and forth, some leaving, some staying, some still thinking about it, what's the end game here? Where does this all go? Well, it all comes down to one final destination, the California ballot box.
So here's how this is all going to play out. The whole thing really picked up steam back in late 2025. Then we hit that huge residency deadline on January 1st, 2026. And now, the big one. All eyes are on November 2026. That's when the voters of California get to have the final say.
And you know, this might be the most important takeaway of all. We've been talking a lot about a couple hundred incredibly wealthy people, but at the end of the day, they don't get the final vote. The power to make this law or to reject it rests with millions of ordinary voters across the state.
Which brings us right back to where we started, to that massive billion-dollar question that California has to answer. Is this a bold solution to fund essential services by asking the absolute wealthiest to contribute more, or is it a really risky gamble that could end up crippling the state's finances by chasing that golden goose away for good? In the end, the voters will decide.